really important to mention how I got into this teacher appraisal or teacher evaluation topic. 8 years ago, I was approached by a wonderful woman who was at the time the Dean of Faculty at King's, and she said, Lily, I think that you can communicate well with teachers and they listen to you. And you give advice in a way that does not sound intimidating. And she said, would you like to be a person who works with faculty? And I said, okay, why not? And I think the fact that I wasn't too interested in administration was a reason that I was asked to be in administration. So I think that kind of was something that worked for me at the time. So I ended up working with faculty, and I have to tell you that around 3.5 years ago, when we started this idea of faculty appraisal, faculty evaluation, it was pretty unclear to us as to how we were going to go about doing it. And it felt to us exactly like this picture. It felt like we were entering a forest that was a little bit foggy. It had trees, and we didn't really know where we were going, but we knew that we wanted to get somewhere. And we knew that there's a path somewhere in this forest that we were trying to find, and it might have been there, but we just needed to talk to the right people. So we started asking ourselves a question, and the question was, why even do this? Can teacher appraisal be meaningful? Can people benefit from it? What's the point? And can it impact student learning? And we had to add that word positively, because if it impacts student learning negatively, that's even worse. So we added these words, getting past the fears and scars of poor teacher evaluation. So the fears and scars is because whenever we hear the word evaluation or appraisal, there is fear, because somebody's in your classroom and they're watching you and they're taking notes and they're talking to you afterwards about something you take so personally. We as teachers give so much of ourselves. And we can't say, oh, it's not personal, because it is personal. What we do is very, very personal. We're teachers, and that's why we stay in this profession for so long. We touch lives. And through teacher appraisal, you are not only a classroom teacher. If you're the person doing it, you get to touch lives by being in direct contact with people who touch people's lives. So you're in contact with teachers, and there's that ripple effect. So we realize that teachers crave feedback, but they fear it. They fear it because it depends on sometimes not what is being said, but actually how it's being said. Okay, so then we came to the conclusion, I'm coming here with the conclusion before I even go through the process with you, is that teacher appraisal can be meaningful. And now it's my job here to kind of prove that to you somehow. And it can impact student learning positively. Now you may be saying in your head, well, now you just need to prove this. You're saying this, but so what? Talk is cheap, right? Okay, so as teachers, we do have the best of intentions. We have the best of intentions because just like it says here, we refer to our kids. Whenever I'm talking about my kids, my friends often ask me, okay, which kids are you talking about? The ones you gave birth to or the ones you teach? Because very often, they're my kids. They're all my kids. They're my kids and I love them. And there's no place I'd rather be than in that classroom. And that's why I continue to teach. And that's why my colleague, who also does this with me, John Layster, continues to teach. Because by doing that, you're not only practicing something you love, if you truly love education, you have increased the credibility you have with teachers. Because you're not on the outside. You're actually in the practice. You're in the classroom and you know what they're going through. So when a teacher has the best of intention, sometimes there's a gap between the intention of the teacher and what actually gets delivered. And the person who goes into the class to observe that teacher is the one to see, has that gap been filled? Has the message been received the way the intentions were in the head of the teacher? Now, I say at the bottom, it says, oh, we're definitely not in this profession because it's going to make us rich. There's something else that we're here for, right? I don't think anybody really becomes rich by being a teacher. But we do become rich with those feelings. There's nothing more rewarding than when you see the look on a kid's face that they actually get it. And of course, it's more of a passion. I never call it a job. Okay, so just to let you know a little bit about how we came to what our appraisal process looks like right now. We spent over 3.5 years thinking about it. And we spoke to teachers and administrators from other schools. We asked them what they liked and disliked about appraisal. We spoke to administrators from independent schools all over the world. We looked at schools that were similar to ours in the United States. And we spoke to the experts. We even walked through a blizzard in February in Boston to go and meet a man named Kim Marshall, who wrote a book called Teacher Supervision and Evaluation. We knocked on his door, and he saw us for 40 minutes. And he let us take notes. And we took those notes back to King's. And Dr. John Austin, our headmaster, along with us, we spoke, and we wrote something. Of course, Dr. John Austin is the one with the big brain behind all of this. And we wrote something about what we think appraisal should look like. We knew it should not be a bunch of checks. We knew we could not reduce a teacher to a bunch of numbers. You can't do that when a teacher is giving so much of themselves. So we got all this information, put it together, and when we talked about it, we also realized, what do we hope to achieve? We hope to achieve growth. We want this to be ongoing professional development. That's what it has to be. It has to be about growth. So we thought, should we link this to salary? Do you give a teacher more money if they're doing a good job? Do you take away money if they're not doing a good job? And we came to the conclusion that no, we're not going to link it to salary. We're not going to say, oh, we're going to give you more money, because it takes out the human side to teaching and it becomes this competition. Now, one of our 5 guiding principles at King's Academy is love of learning. Yes, we have a whole bunch of other things, respect, responsibility, and integrated life. We have those, but love of learning, is love of learning only for students? I don't think so. I think as teachers, the growth that happens itself is what the reward should be. It's not related to salary. It's about investing in relationships between the administration and the teachers, and investing in the relationships between teachers and students. Okay, so the domains of our rubric are as follows. These are what we decided would be the domains of our appraisal. Because we're a boarding school, we have different aspects to what we do at this school. When you wake up in the morning and you go to, our academic day starts at 8:30. It ends at 4. However, we have a whole bunch of other things that we do which are called co-curriculars. And those take up a very important part of our day as well. And we call them co-curriculars, not extracurriculars, for a reason, because the academic side and all the other things that students do, whether they're sports or drama or music, all of those things are related to a student's life at King's. And that's what teachers do as well. So advising and care of students is our first domain. Now, at King's, one role of our teachers is, yes, to be classroom teachers, but also to be advisors. So for example, I have 6 advisees, and these students are students I may not necessarily teach. But I am responsible for their emotional well-being. I'm a liaison between them and their teachers. I communicate with their parents. They come and talk to me about some confidential issues that they don't feel like telling somebody else. They have a problem with a teacher. They just come to me, and they know they can just talk to me about anything. Now, advising and care of students is at the top of what we do. If you notice, we did not put teaching as number 1, because that is a form of teaching. As a teacher, you are always on. We don't think that the second you walk into school, you're being observed. You're a role model. Kids are watching you. They're looking up to you. So advising and care of students, and I'm going to show you each domain and what that means. Planning and preparing is exactly that. It's related to how well a teacher plans and prepares their classes. Teaching and engaging is, yes, it's about the teaching, it's about the knowledge, but how well have you engaged your students? Are they with you? Can you read their faces? Professional assessment and feedback. Are you assessing them in a way that you're getting information related to what you taught them? What type of summative and formative assessments have you used? How have you used this feedback to improve your own teaching, not just to improve their learning? It's a two-way street. I'll talk a little bit more about professional responsibilities and collaboration and growth, but I'd like to pass these out to you so that you can actually see them. And just if there's anything that speaks to you on these documents, then I'd like us to talk about that as well. If you take a look at these domains, the domain is the top where it says advising and care of students. So this is where domain number 1 is. And then if you look, you have 4 columns. There are 4 columns here. And these 4 columns, if you'll notice, we have one that's highly effective, improvement necessary, and does not meet standards. Now, before teachers are evaluated, they got the chance to look at this, digest it, chew it, swallow it, think about it, talk to us about it. They have the entire summer to think about it before we even go into their classes. We talk about appraisal all the time. Not in the form of, we're going to get you. No. We hope to become so invisible that when we walk into a teacher's class, they don't see us. We literally become flies on the wall. Gassan, literally flies on the wall. Okay, so we just hope that, students get so used to our presence. Now, when you look at this, you might think, so which column was written first, do you think? Which column do you think we wrote first? 3, effective. Excellent, we did write effective first. So Dr. John, he wrote the effective column first, and that was actually advice given to us from Mr. Kim Marshall, the man that we met in the blizzard, right? He's the one who told us, write effective first. We wrote effective first because that's where we want to see all our teachers, at effective. However, if a teacher goes above and beyond what we expect them to do, we have to acknowledge that as administration. We have to say, wow, this person has really gone the extra mile. And that's highly effective. There are some days where you're having a good day. It's not the best that you've had. So there's improvement necessary. There are some days that you may have something that, you just didn't meet the standard. It doesn't mean that you're always like this, but there are some days that this may have happened. And that's why it's important to see that this document, yes, we fill it out sometimes and they fill it out, the teachers. There's a time near the beginning of the year before appraisal starts formally where we ask teachers, rate yourself and don't show me. Just rate yourself. After that, when we start observing classes and we go in, we anchor our conversations in the rubric. So for example, if I go to planning and preparing, B, if we look at B, domain B, if I go into a class and I take a look at preparation for teaching, the very bottom one where it says F, preparation for teaching. Now, the highly effective one would be consistently designs lessons that are interesting, aligned with unit goals and engaging. We look at the effective column. It says prepares for class with creativity, purpose, and intentionality. The difference between these two is one simple adverb. Do you see it? It's consistently. Consistently. Can it be possible that we all the time do this? Maybe. If you do all the time, you're highly effective. We do realize that this is a very, very ideal place to be. However, if you have a teacher who is there most of the time, we need to acknowledge that. Because appraisal is not only for teachers who need improvement, it's for teachers who you want to validate, who are doing a really, really good job. And you want to pat them on the back and you want to tell them, you know what, you're doing a great job. And what do you do with those teachers who are doing a really, really great job at your school? What do you do for them? Since you're not going to give them any money, according to what we're telling you to do, what do you do? Yesterday, I attended that workshop with Diane Ullman, and she was saying you can lead from any seat. So giving them more roles, excellent. Delegating tasks to them, having them mentor younger teachers would be a great way to validate and acknowledge their abilities. Definitely, that is one way. Okay, so these are different levels. By looking at them, is there anything that you would like to just quickly ask for before I move on, even though I will open this up to questions later on? Is there anything that comes to mind as you see these? Or should we just, we'll move on and we'll come back to them. Yes, please.
If a teacher is rated as does not meet standards, do they work on that teacher or do they just let go? Would it be worth it?
Okay, I'm going to comment on the very last question that you asked. Would it be worth it? Would it be worth it? I think it's always worth it. I think it's always worth it to sit with a teacher and tell them what exactly you saw and how it can be improved. When they don't meet standards, those are the teachers who need us the most. And I'll tell you exactly the process as to how we do this. There's a very clear process that we follow for those teachers in particular. And we've seen them, and we have them sometimes. We don't just see one bad class, or we don't see a snapshot of a bad class and say, okay, fired. We don't do that, right? We invest in our teachers. Okay, so we'll move on, and we'll come back to this. Okay, so the framework for appraisal. You may be wondering, so how does this process work? What do these people do? Okay, so we learned a lot from last year, from appraisal last year. Last year it came into full effect. We appraised our teachers, and we used to visit them 10 times. We would go into a teacher's class 10 times. We would sit with the teacher after every single class. Okay, we would have an initial meeting at the beginning of the year. We would even give them the rubric, for example, in May of the year before they were going to be appraised. So if I was to begin the appraisal process for a certain teacher in September, they would get to see the rubric in May. So they receive the rubrics, they have an idea of what to expect. That would happen in May. In September, we would sit with the teacher, and when I say we're a team. So I would sit with the teacher, John لايسلر, Dean of Faculty, would sit with the teacher, our academic Dean of Affairs, the HOD of the teacher, the head of math or the head of science or the head of English, depending on where the teacher is, and also our Dean of Students. Because we're a residential school, the duties that our teachers do outside of the class are as valuable as what they do inside the class. So our teachers are dorm parents. They live in the dorm. Our teachers are coaches. They play volleyball with the kids. Our teachers coach swimming. We don't have an outside person who comes to King's and does this. our teachers do it. It's part of their contract. So we need to acknowledge all of that. The advising they do, the way they write reports, all of this. So we're a team, and we're a team who sits with a teacher because we honor every aspect of what they do at King's Academy. You are not only an in-classroom teacher. You're a teacher all the time. Even when you're walking in the hallway, you're a teacher. When you're sitting in the dining hall serving food to the kids, you're a teacher. Okay, so we have an initial meeting and we talk about the process. We have 7 cycles of observation. The very first one is announced. We ask the teacher, give us a block that you would like us to come and observe you. That very first one. We go in, announce. They are expecting us. If they prepare their best lesson, it's okay. That's great. We're not going to say, oh, it's just a show for us. Make the teacher comfortable. Tell them the next visit will be unannounced. And I will come in at any time, beginning, middle, or end of the lesson. Anytime. Now, what it does is it keeps teachers on their toes. We, of course, know that our teachers will always be ready. So, after every single visit, we sit with a teacher. And we make sure that the feedback session we have is not more than 48 hours after that visit. It has to be fresh in their mind, fresh in our mind. Okay, after last year, we visited teachers 10 times each. We felt it was a bit too much, and so we changed it to 7 visits. That's the modification that we made. Okay, so you're wondering, so how are you going to remember everything that you saw? I'll tell you in a minute. I'll tell you what we do to make sure that it's a very, very fair reflection of a teacher's class. All right. After we've done this for a while, we have a mid-year check-in. So in January, February, the teacher would have filled out the rubric, and we fill out again, and we compare the rubrics. And we see, do we overlap in some places, or do we not? And we talk about that, and we have a conversation about that. Now, all of our discussions, just for you to know, are anchored in the rubric. So I would tell a teacher, okay, I'm going to visit you for the 3rd time, but we are going to be looking at B. And what was B? Planning and preparing. I'm going to look at you through the lens of planning and preparing, or I'm going to look at you through the lens of teaching and engaging. So I'm looking at you, yes, for everything, but with a focus on this. And I ask the teacher to rate themselves, and I rate them, and we have a conversation. If we overlap, great. If we don't overlap, why? And we talk about it. Okay. In May, a teacher will receive a summative report that will have no surprises. It could be up to 7 pages. It's a very labor-intensive job for my colleague and myself. We spend hours and hours and hours of putting all the information that we got about this teacher, whether it's from the student surveys, from the HOD's input, from our visits, from the reflection of the teacher, we put it all in the report. And nothing is a surprise. It's a very transparent process, and we promise every one of our teachers, we will never talk about you. We will always talk to you. The worst thing you could do is talk about a teacher behind their back. And that's, the gossip starts. It's the worst thing. Okay, so what do students think? What do you think students think an effective teacher is? Do they have a say in this? Are we just the experts? Students, they are. What do you think they say? What is an effective teacher according to a student? What do you think they say? What words come to mind when you ask a student?
Teacher talk, it would be feedback, but they tell me how I'm doing. They tell me what I'm doing and what I'm doing correctly.
They tell you what you're doing correctly, definitely. What else?
Talk to each other.
Students talk to each other, that's right. Okay, accent fluently. What else? What do you think? What do you think teach students?
Yes.
Likability. What makes students like teachers?
If they are enjoying the class.
Enjoy the class. The factor of enjoyment.
Engagement.
Engagement. Do they enjoy the class? Do they understand the class? Okay, great. Okay, so our students, I actually asked my students. I said, I want you to tell me what you think makes an effective teacher. And this is Ahmed. He's in my honors English class. He's a senior, and look what he said. He does not know anything about the rubrics, by the way. He doesn't know. He says they should not make students fear participation because of potential mistakes. They should encourage the participation of the students to learn from errors. So basically, Ahmed, who has never seen the rubric, I'd like you to go to please teaching and engaging. Go to teaching and engaging. And on one of these, if you go down to highly effective, C mindset. Take a look at C mindset. Teaching and engaging. Actively inculcates in students a growth mindset and normalizes error. Normalizes error, meaning that it's okay to make a mistake. That's all right. If a teacher makes me feel that it's okay to make a mistake, wow. That's absolutely amazing. That's what students want. Don't make me afraid to participate. Make it okay. They're asking us to do that. That's what they say an effective teacher does. Another student said, when a teacher is passionate, their fire and enthusiasm ignite the students' interest and excite them to be the best that they can be. By the way, I did not edit these. These came directly from my students, copy-paste. And I asked their permission, and I even asked their permission to put their name up there. So Sireen Ajloni is in my English 12 honors class. She wrote that. If you go to A in teaching and engaging, again, Sireen has not seen this rubric. It says, love of learning and zest. Zest. This was a deliberate choice. We said, enthusiastic and joyful, embrace of the life of the mind, inspires students to pursue knowledge for its own sake. Love of learning. It's actually one of our guiding principles. We want students to love to learn for the sake of loving to learn. That's what we hope. And only a teacher can do that. If a teacher is passionate about their subject, the students will be passionate about the subject too. Okay, let's see what another student says. This is my all-time favorite. I just loved an effective teacher, Kamal Adisa. He's a Nigerian student also in my honors 12 class. He says, an effective teacher gives us questions to chew rather than facts to swallow. How amazing is that? Questions to chew rather than facts to swallow. Again, he didn't see H. If you go down to H, where it says questioning, look what it says. It says, I'd like you to look at 3, effective. Questions are of high quality and demand thought. Adequate time is provided for students to reflect and respond. 2, let me think about it, miss. If I don't get the answer within 2 seconds, give me some wait time. Let me think. Again, frames lessons with essential and driving questions. Questions consistently stretch students. Students themselves articulate and frame questions that advance the lesson. I need to get the students to a place where I'm not the only one asking the questions. They are asking questions as well. So that's the essential questions idea that we need to get our students comfortable with. They don't want to swallow facts. They are bored of names and numbers. They need to know why, how. How does this connect to my life? Can a teacher do that? Can they? If you can't make it personal and relevant to their lives, they don't care. Who cares about when a war happened? I don't. So, do you remember your numbers and dates? Okay. So, I thought it would be interesting for you to actually watch the students. So, I'd like you to listen to a conversation, watch them. I just proposed a question, and I asked them, what makes an effective teacher? I did not prepare them for this. They sat. The reason they're wearing their senior jackets is because they just received their senior jackets. That's why they're really excited. They all look preppy and nice. Okay, so our question for today is, what makes an effective teacher?
I recently read a quote by an unknown author, and it said that mothers shape the society, and they have a very large influence on how the society turns out, especially in the eyes of foreigners or outsiders. And I thought that the same would apply to teachers, especially effective teachers, because they influence and inspire students who end up making up the society and taking up the jobs that the society offers and changing the way people live. Do you think it does apply or not?
I think that it does apply. I think that a lot of great leaders and people who have really changed and made their mark in the world have had great teachers. And I think that if you have an effective teacher or a great teacher, then it can spark kind of passion in you to change things. And if you don't have one of those teachers, then it can even inspire you, like not inspire you, but cause you to do the wrong things.
I think that is what truly makes teachers more effective and makes them out of the box and makes them truly special.
How do you think they can achieve that?
I mean, I don't know. There are like many different kinds of teachers, but there are definitely teachers who. I definitely know teachers who do use like such techniques. Like personally speaking, I at one point in middle school, I despised English and I despised writing, much to this Lily's surprise, I'm sure. I honestly never thought that I would be interested at all. I just saw it as like a very tedious process, thesis statement, body paragraphs, conclusion, something that just needed to be done, something that needed to be gotten over with. But I eventually came across English teachers here in King's that taught me the true beauty and significance of the English language and writing in that English language, and through whatever methods and means they used, they could make the classes entertaining and use sorts of techniques that could make this kind of knowledge and seeking that kind of knowledge very, very interesting and engaging for the students. And teachers who are able to do that are special and significant.
I think in my opinion, there are four main characteristics that make up a good teacher: dedication, passion, creativity, and respect. And if they incorporate all those in their method of teaching or in their way of presenting the class, students will be affected and will be changed.
And to add on to Celine, we're all students, and we know how a teacher we know a teacher's attitude and how they behave, and I believe an ineffective teacher would be a teacher that teaches just to teach. As Faisal said, the teacher just teaches the subject, or is in a classroom just for the sake of teaching this A, B, and C as this is a job. And a teacher generally should be there, should have some passion, should have some care, and would be in the classroom to actually guide the students and give them the support and help them.
I don't think that's the only thing that is needed, because a teacher can be passionate, but that teacher might not know the proper way of teaching, and the students might be bored, although the teacher is really passionate about the subject. So.
I agree with her, and I think that besides passion, which is one of the most important things, because if you don't really want to teach, then the student won't learn. If a teacher doesn't know the student at all, and doesn't know their background, where they're from, like how they are, the way they learn, the way they do things, then you won't really spark any change in them at all, because you're not appealing, you're not relating to them. So if a teacher comes in here that you've never seen before and starts talking really fast and really passionately about a subject, but it's a way that you don't really know how to teach, then you're not going to learn anything. So I think a really important part of being a teacher is kind of knowing your class and knowing the essence of the students, just kind of relating to them.
I think teachers should understand that students learn in different ways. That's why they should incorporate different methods into teaching. And also I think they should understand that the students will have different perspectives, and to also take those perspectives into consideration.
As also adding to Nicole's point of relating to the students, I think a very important aspect is to connect on a personal level with your students. Some of you may or may have not seen this movie, but I'm pretty sure all the Proctor's team did at the beginning during or before orientation. We watched a movie of a teacher who decided to teach in AP calculus course to pretty much in the ghettos. and the students were never interested in learning. They never cared. They never showed up to class. But he connected with them personally. He used humor. He was spontaneous, and I thought these were really important aspects to engaging the students in a class that would make them want to go to the class.
Because after all, we spend so much time in school, and we go from class to class to class, and sometimes it just kind of seems like a blur, and we're just kind of like going through the motions just to get out of here. And I think a good teacher will make you really stop, and the moment you sit down in class, you'll want to listen, and you'll want to know that like this person not only like cares about what they're talking about and believes in what they're talking about and believes that that will make a change, because you don't want to be taught by someone who thinks you're ordinary.
And if you really think about it, from the moment we're born up to until the age, let's say 14, we're taught that we're only taught how to have fun. From the moment we're born, we're taught how to have fun, how to enjoy our lives, and that if you don't have fun in your life, then what's the point of living? And if you think about it, once we reach, let's say, high school, we're given a span of 4 or 5 years to transition into adulthood. And in those 5 years, we're expected to change our entire lifestyle and become programmed to what society wants us to be. And really, those 5 years, if you're expected to become an adult, the teacher is the only inspiration that you might have.
I think it's like nature versus nurture. Like, everyone has a specific kind of like natural way they are. Like some people are more like jumpy, some people are more calm, and like it's the same for teachers. Like of course, if you're a teacher, you know what you're going to teach. Like a math teacher knows 1 + 1 = 2, but it depends on who you are as a person that really affects how the student learns. Like you could easily just say 1 + 1 = 2, and I remember that. But you could also approach it in a different manner, in a way that's going to like involve the student in some way. It's about you being a person rather than a teacher to the student. Because like once you're able to connect with the person in a way that's more natural rather than systematic, like in a sense like you're just trying to like get them to memorize it. Like it feels more like ordinary to me. That's why I think so.
What relating to Kamal said, I think that kind of summing up that like a teacher shouldn't try and mold you to some standard that.
I watched a video yesterday on AJ Plus. They posted it, and basically talked about a teacher at Keystone Academy in the United States. And so this teacher starts his day with a different student every day, and at the beginning of class, he spends 5 minutes giving him or her compliments and like telling him or her how good of a human being that she is. And then he realized after a few weeks of doing that the students started supporting each other in the class, and they started like encouraging each other and helping each other when they were discouraged, let's say, or when they got a wrong answer.
I think something that builds on your point is another thing that makes an effective teacher is her ability not only to teach the class about things that are in the system like math and science, but to teach the students about other students and their backgrounds and different situations in order to make it easier for the students to be with each other and learn from each other.
So would you say that, okay, so this is a question taking on to your points, especially Kamal's point, would you say that an effective teacher would be a teacher that teaches the students to think outside the box, but not necessarily, because you have some subjects such as physics that or many of the sciences you're going to have to be taught to think a certain way. But I mean, thinking outside the box is a plus right there. But you have equations and theories that you need to learn as opposed to subjects as humanities.
But wouldn't you say that can also differ from student to student? Like Kamal said, some students are jumpy, some students are calm. And like, for example, what works with me are jumpy teachers. Like, for example, when I was taught math in sophomore year, Miss Catherine, and junior year, Mr. Dan, they were like, for me, they were the best math teachers. But for others, it might be like, that's just too hyper, I can't concentrate.
And I think that's an important part of being a teacher, is that knowing that like there are different types of students and that you can't, like, yeah, you should be authentic in your teaching and like really stay true to the person that you are, because teachers are human after all. I mean, they were students themselves. They can't just completely come into the classroom with a completely different personality, because then it would also like hinder to the learning. But I think they should be aware that there are different students, and when when you're teaching the way that you teach. If someone's not getting it, then maybe you can tone it down. You know?
The best way for a teacher to like keep this balance is by teaching instead of lecturing, because if you lecture, like you're either going to be like really hyper throughout or really calm throughout, and one of the other is not going to affect a student the same way to affect another. So the best way to do it is to like get the students to kind of do their own like learning, you know, like for example, sometimes like a teacher could lead you up to the point of realization, like you don't need to be given the answer like to learn what it is.
It's definitely one thing to have, like I definitely agree with Kamal 100%. It's one thing to have a teacher that assigns their student a reading and gives them a monotonous lecture and assigns them a quiz the next day and then continues on to the next student. But it's another thing for the teacher to be very observant and empathetic towards the students in such a way where he'd be aware and understanding to how their students' brains would be able to comprehend like what they're learning and what they would do best. So in that way, and with teachers being able to recognize that and having that kind of empathy, they'd know how students would be able to learn and be guided in the best way possible.
I feel like the way the teachers respond to mistakes is also important, because if we're in a transitional phase, and if we're constantly told that we're wrong, then we'll develop weak personalities and not be confident. So I think they should work with a student to like fix their mistakes instead of just telling them that they're wrong and they have to change whatever they're doing.
But that also depends on the student, because I don't know if you took this any of you took psychology or any teachers talked about it with the student that has a growth mindset, no matter what, they're still going to. I think teachers should encourage it, but you should know as a student that you've made a mistake. Yes, you can learn from it, but you've made a mistake and you're held accountable for that mistake.
Yeah, I think we can definitely all agree that effective teachers don't sugarcoat things to the students and teach them the wrong things, but of course teachers should definitely like recognize mistakes and point them out to their students. But it's all about the approach. When giving them a negative approach, telling them, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, they should more focus on this is how you get it right, this is how you improve, and this is how you look at it in the correct way. It's all about that positive approach.
And it's not only about what the student does wrong, because if you only focus on what he does and what mistakes that he does, then you're just conditioning him to be afraid of making mistakes. Yeah. You also have to praise the student for the good things that he does. It's not only about the mistakes.
But some mistakes are worth focusing on.
No, I'm not saying that.
And that's not accomplishment.
Like a compliment sandwich.
Yeah.
No, not like that. But it's just kind of like if some mistakes are worth focusing on, and some accomplishments are worth the recognition. You know, like if you have a teacher who's just constantly teaching you, and no matter how hard you work, they never say good job, and they never give you a comment, and they just give you the grade and move on. But then when you make a mistake, they kind of just focus on that, and it kind of makes you feel like you're it kind of makes you feel like you're almost not even good enough for the class.
Students should do the same for the teachers, because some teachers make mistakes and you don't really say it to them, and they might become a really bad teacher. And giving feedback to them and telling them what they can do, like feedback from the students, can make the teachers more effective in classes.
I think in the end, what makes a good student makes a good teacher. I mean, the main characteristics that make a good student are what make the teacher effective as well. Because in the end, it's a conversation between the student and the teacher. Like the whole thing is just the way a teacher listens to a student and the way a student listens to a teacher. And so they need to sort of complement each other in order to work and in order for the teacher to be effective.
Yeah, I agree with Serene, because I feel like a lot of times, the teacher-student relationship is kind of seen as like us against the teacher, and like, yeah, and it's just kind of like confrontation, and it's just kind of like feel very like defensive sometimes. And I feel like to reach a mutual understanding and like really like help the learning process is to the teacher and the students both work together to like reach some agreement that like we're not on opposite teams, we're working together for like a common good.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that would be a good place to end. We're not on opposite teams. We're on the same team. Thank you very much, guys, for a great discussion.
So that was the student. I think the student said it all. And if I were to summarize that in a few words, what I would say is that they focused a lot on was the partnership, the attitude that the teacher has in the class, the empathy. Does the teacher understand us? Does the teacher know who we are as people? Does the teacher care? Does the teacher see me? And I'm going to focus on the fact where it says, where they're thinking, they didn't use the word see me, but when I'm using see me as, do you see me? Do you know who I am? Do you understand what makes me tick? And can you reach me where I am? Because we need to talk to students from where they are. We have an idea in our head where we want them to be in June, obviously. And I told my students, I said, we plan backwards. And they looked at me and they said, what do you mean by backwards? And I said, well, in my mind, I know where you want to be in June, and I plan every single one of my lessons according to where I want you to be then. And they looked at me and they said, but that's a hard job, miss. And I said, yes, it's a really hard job. So they have more empathy for us as well now when they understand what we're doing. It's really important to tell students what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you plan on getting there, because they understand a lot more than you think they do. They don't want you just to come in and tell them a whole bunch of facts. They want to know what you're doing, what's going on in your head as you're teaching them. Why do you care about them? Why does this matter? Is it just so that they can get a good grade? Or is it so they can be better citizens, so that they can solve the problems of the world, as His Majesty said when he created our school as well? So you may be wondering what that scribble is up there. That was their discussion. So as they were speaking around this table, which we call a Harkness table, and if you'd like to learn more about this Harkness table, I'm going to ask you to go to Mr. John Leisler's session, because he's going to explain what a Harkness table is and how that discussion happens. I graphed it. So if you notice, only Anise did not speak. Every one of the students spoke. So that's exactly what it looks like, and they get a group grade on that eventually as well. And then that's how they try to bring in kids into the conversation. None of them put their hands up. I was completely out of it. I was just scribbling like that. And there's a circle around Serene because she started it. She started the conversation. Okay, so that's just to give you an idea. So things are starting to clear up. The forest is not so dark and gloomy anymore, right? We have a little path right there, and we started seeing, so I think this is what effective teaching should look like or is. So the forest, it's not so dark. So what are the benefits of appraisal? What are the benefits? We help colleagues see their blind spots. And we tell them, you have a blind spot. That blind spot could be positive and it could be negative. When I say you have a positive blind spot, that means you're probably doing something really, really well. It's second nature to you and nobody's ever told you about it. And the teachers who have been teaching for a very long time say, but I always do that. And I say, well, did anybody ever tell you what a great job you're doing at that? Could you teach other teachers how to do that? And that's a blind spot. It's a positive blind spot. In terms of a negative blind spot, we had a teacher at our school who the girls used to think that he didn't like them. He never looked at them. And they thought that he didn't like them. He didn't like girls. He only likes boys. And so I went into his class one day and I saw him. And the material he was delivering was so interesting. However, I noticed where he stood in the class. He always stood here. He always stood here. And by coincidence, the people who sat here were always the boys. The girls sat over there. He did not intentionally not want to look at the girls, but his comfort zone in the class was here. And he never even noticed that he used to do that. So just by me telling him, do you know that where you stand in the class is depriving you from making eye contact with everybody? He said, I never noticed that. I said, well, now there's a perception amongst the girls that you don't like them. And he was shocked. And he said, really? And so it was a minor thing. But when he did that and he changed it, it helped. There's another teacher who, whenever the bell rang at the end of class, he would be telling them, okay, don't forget to read page 57, and then as they were packing up and leaving. So I told them a small thing you could do, a very minor thing you could do, is write the homework on the board at the beginning of the lesson, point it out, spend 2 minutes on that, and when the bell rings, you know that you've already told them what their homework is. It's a small thing. Another teacher would walk in and spend so much time trying to settle them down. So I said, just have a do now on the board. Something that will get them settled for those 2 minutes. They walk in and they know those 2 minutes count. And if you really, really want to make them count, give it a grade. Give it a fake grade. You know, it's just doing what you need to do. These small blind spots. So it's not meant to be a trap. It's completely about making them better teachers. That's what they want. They want to become better teachers. And as a result, you'll get better students. So, what do we do? I told you, do I remember everything? No, I don't remember everything that happens in class, but I do write everything down. Every single thing I see in class is written down, typed. So I have trained myself, and so has John, my colleague, to type really fast. We type fast. We sit there in the corner, watch the teacher, watch the students, and type every single thing we see. And you may say, oh my God, these people are crazy. This is so labor intensive. And you know what? It is labor intensive. However, what does it do? It removes subjectivity of me. I'm not making a judgment. I'm just telling the teacher what I saw. I am a mirror. Now, somebody might say, okay, well, you know what? Just put a camera in the room and you're done. Fine. However, what will a camera not be able to do that I will be able to do? I pick up the spirit of the class. I pick up the energy of the class. I can make comments on what I see because guess what? I can type that fast. I can type what they are doing in the class and I can comment what that means. I can say, so what you just did here was this technique or that technique, or how about, or I'm wondering what you meant here. What we do is we transcribe the class. When we're in the class, we send the transcription to the teacher by email while we're in the class. And we tell the teacher when we'd like to meet with them, according to their free periods, and then we meet with them. So they get to see exactly what you were typing. It's not a secret. They know that whatever's going to be typed, they're going to see. It's 100% transparent. And if there are a few typos there, it's okay. No big deal. That's fine. But they know what you've typed. Okay. So, what am I focusing on? We have a common vocabulary at our school. We have read this book that I'm sure many of you have read called Teach Like a Champion. Have you heard of it? I'm sure it's been translated into Arabic. علم بثقة, right? Teach Like a Champion. Doug Lemov. 49 techniques. All of them are great. These are our favorites. One of the kids said Normalize Error. It's not up there, but it is one of our favorites as well. So, if you look at these, when we were in class, and if I asked, for example, what's your name? Farah. If I asked Farah a question, and she said, I don't know, as a teacher, I don't accept that answer. But I don't make her feel bad about it. I need to think really fast to think about what do I need to give her for her to be able to know. I need to give her something. I can't just let her off the hook. There's no opt-out. So if I see a teacher using that technique, I tell them, wow, great job. You used no opt-out.
It's very beneficial when the teacher doesn't tell us it's just wrong, but give us the way how to get it right or how to improve ourselves. So
definitely staying with a student to make sure. Now, I often see that we either give them the answer right away, or then we go and we ask another student, oh, who can help him? Just stay with the student for a bit. Train your students to be patient, because that in itself is great. That's self-discipline. No opt-out for the student. Now, let's say a student says, you ask a question, and they give you a one-word answer. Perspective. They love that word. Perspective. And then you say, what about perspective? Tell me more. And then they tell you something. So you're stretching it with them. You stay with them for a little bit longer. They tell you something, but you know what? They don't frame the answer the way you want them to frame it. So you say, okay, how can we be a bit more accurate with that? Right is right. You're trying to nudge them to say the answer in a way that sounds better. So that's what right is right. You want the right answer. You want them to form it in a way that makes sense. Format matters. And then also, let's say a student says an answer and it was really stupid. We never say, oh, that was dumb. It's like, I'm wondering what made you think about that. Format matters, and positive framing for us as well. We need to know how to positively frame our comments to the students. So if I see a teacher doing this, all I need to say now at King's, for example, is, wow, positive framing. They know that I'm telling them, you framed your comment in an effective way. When I say, so you stretched it, it's like me telling them, you stayed with the student for enough time. So we created a common vocabulary at King's. So when I'm giving feedback to teachers, if I use these words, that's how I can type faster, because they understand what I'm trying to tell them. Then there's another thing, cold calling. I tell my students right at the beginning of the year, I tell them there are lots of times when, Muna, I'm going to call on you and your hand is not up. I'm not picking on you. Your hand is not up. I'm going to cold call on you because I care. I want to make sure that you're paying attention in my class. And it's not that I call on kids who are not paying attention as a punishment. Never. I don't do that. But I tell them in advance that I will be calling on kids whose hands are not up. Expect it. If your hand is up, I may call on you, and I may not. But that's my style. You're cold calling. Too often we use this as a form of punishment. I, we, you. Yes. If a student asks you to repeat, I will repeat. I will repeat. It's not like an I gotcha kind of thing. The most important thing is for students to feel that what Nicole said, we're on the same team. I will not benefit anything by showing that this kid was not paying attention. Okay, I'll repeat it for them. I'll bring them back in. And then I'll say it. I'll say whatever I have to say. Definitely. Never argue. I never argue with the kids. No reason. It's just a waste of time. I had a teacher just the other day who told me, you know what, I have a classroom management issue where students are constantly asking me, can I go to the bathroom? Can I do this? Can I do that? And they're constantly disrupting class. And he said, I do not want to engage in conversation with them because it's wasting too much of my class time. So I told him, use a yellow card. The yellow card is a warning. You don't engage in conversation, but when they get that yellow card, they know. You train them ahead of time and you tell them the yellow card means you're being warned. The red card, there will be consequences. It's not for every class. It's for that class that's really, really difficult, and you do not want to engage in a conversation with them at the time. You can have a conversation with them later. Okay, so I, we, you. Very often, teachers lecture the whole time like I'm doing, which you should never do, probably. Like this is not the way I run my classes at all, but I am right now. But maybe only 33% of our class should be that. That's the I part. That's when I'm explaining things to the students. The we is when you give them a chance for them to work together or to work in pairs. And the you is when the student himself or herself is the working and giving you, that's the assessment. That's when you know, either formative or summative. That's when you collect feedback on, did they learn the material that I tried to teach them? All I have to do, we had a teacher who constantly focused only on the we and the you. And I said, but you know what? When do you ever teach them anything? It's all about homework, 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 and then you discuss the homework, and then you come back and you do the homework. When did the instruction happen? I need to see more of the I. So if I tell a teacher at our school, I don't see enough of the I, they understand what I'm saying, because we've already built in the common vocabulary. You need a common vocabulary to make appraisal work. Okay, so Marshall, the guy we saw in the blizzard again. Oh, sorry. Yes, you can ask.
Before you move on, can I just ask a question?
Yes, please.
When you do your appraisal, and there is a in the rubric for assessment and feedback. So do you record every oral feedback that is given by the teacher also? rather than just, it's always not written. Like sometimes the teacher in a class might give a feedback to the child, yes, this is how it is, but you could do it this way. So that is also taken into the appraisal, right? So how do you record that?
How teachers give feedback is very important.
No, feedback is not always written.
That's right.
In the classroom also, it's feedback might be given orally. So that is also put into your appraisal.
Yes.
Like in this class, to this student, you said this.
That's right.
So you
That's
record
right.
that also.
If you framed it very positively and you felt that the student got something out of it, and you as an outsider noticed that the student received the feedback well, you can comment on that, definitely.
Okay.
Everything and anything, it's about growth. You want that teacher to learn from every experience they have.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yep. So moving on, Marshall, the man we met in the blizzard, Kim Marshall. Kim, we get something called the Marshall Memo at school. And when we visited him, teachers were really surprised that he was a man, because Kim could be a woman's name as well. So I took a picture with him, sent it to the faculty. I said, Kim is a guy, very nice man. It is unreasonable to ask a professional to change much more than 10% a year, but it is unprofessional to change by less than 10% a year. Meaning, if as a teacher you are not willing to grow constantly and learn, you have a problem. That's what you need to assess with your teachers. Do they have a growth mindset? Are they willing to learn themselves? Because unless a teacher is willing to learn, how could they teach? They become dinosaurs. So it's our job to help teachers grow. It's a mindset. How much are they going to grow? How are you going to help them grow? How does the appraisal process help them grow? Okay. Flexibility and adaptability. Coaching to deal with unexpected moments. I think we've all had unexpected moments in our classes where we weren't really ready to deal with something and it just came up. And many of our teaching fellows have a problem with dealing with these unexpected moments. So you go in with a plan. I really wanted to teach my class how to write this essay, or they wanted to write an essay. But after we started, I realized that they had no clue what a thesis statement was. I have to be flexible enough, adaptable enough to go back and teach them that. There may be an unexpected moment where a student, for whatever reason, was just acting silly, and it happens. So what do I do with that? How does the teacher deal with that at the moment in class? What do we do? Teaching fellows, teachers with fewer years of experience, 1 or 2, may get flustered, may say, the students hate me. They don't like me. And we hear that from our younger teachers. So what do we do at that moment to train the teacher that, do I call them out? Do I tell this, do I shame the student in front of his peers? Of course, teachers need to learn, what do I do? And it depends also from culture to culture, but we definitely can talk to a student. Sometimes just making eye contact with the student. For example, some teachers don't have a problem with chewing gum in their class. I'm old school. I have a problem with chewing gum in my class. So one teacher, instead of, they yell at the student, they go throw out your gum in front of the entire class. You could establish a certain type of, let's say body language, a gesture. So my students, now if I look at a student who's chewing gum, all I have to do is make eye contact with that student, go like this. They know. I have to get up quietly, go to the garbage, throw it out, and come back. I did not interrupt the class. It's a hidden sign language between me and them. Why waste energy speaking for nothing? A student walks in late, I'll never ask them why they walked in late. I'll deal with it later, because that's going to interrupt the flow of my lesson. It's not the place to ask. And we just train them for these unexpected moments. Okay. So, PD lunches. How do teachers become better? We offer PD lunches. My colleague, John لايسلر, that's him standing up there. And our teachers are so dedicated that we offer PD lunch, professional development lunches, every week. So in Arabic, we do them in Arabic on Tuesdays. They give up a free period, and I do those in the library. The Arabic teachers come to me, and I offer them professional development for 45 minutes every week. John لايسلر offers professional development over lunch. They don't go and socialize with other teachers at lunch. On Wednesdays, they come for approximately 30 minutes. We all sit together in a classroom. Lunch comes to us. It's sandwiches and French fries, whatever we get. We sit there, we eat, and we talk about professional development. A topic could be given by John, or a teacher could come in and offer to share some type of knowledge with their colleagues. We always have PD. It happens every single week. I'm a student every week in something called Tech Mondays. I am not a high-tech person. This stuff and PowerPoint and clickers and whatever, I don't like them. I'm not into this stuff. I go and Amir, our tech guy, he sits and he teaches us. So being uncomfortable in a student's seat is great because it's nice to feel uncomfortable and learn something new. And we do that every Monday. Anybody who wants to learn about using technology in their classes goes to Tech Monday, gives up a lunch, not giving up a lunch, you just sit at lunch in a classroom and you learn stuff. And the things I learned this year are amazing. It's optional. We don't force our teachers. That's a really good question, by the way. You can go if you want to go. And you know what? A third of our faculty are there at any given time. And we offered in English and in Arabic. So nobody feels discluded. Yep. Okay, so again, this is about support and growth. We're hoping to plant a seed of change. We're hoping to make appraisal lovable. We want teachers to love appraisal. And what we loved the most about last year, when we first launched it fully, is that at the end of the year, when we finally gave the appraisal report, which was 5 to 7 pages long, and we told teachers exactly what we thought of them on paper, and we shared that, and of course our headmaster gets to see it too, and the HOD and the teacher, the most beautiful moment was when a teacher said, "So that's it? You're not going to visit my class anymore?" And the feeling in the room between the first meeting that we had with them in September and then the meeting that we had again with them in May was entirely different. It was kind of like, is this like, we were partners all year, and you would think that they get sick of seeing you. But on the contrary, after every single discussion you have with them, after every feedback you have with them, if you're doing it correctly, with love, with empathy, with I've been there, I know what it's like, I'm in a class, I face those things too, I teach every day, then they realize that they're really benefiting and they want more. Yes? Yes, that's it. Yes. Our teachers are encouraged to come and talk to us. You want to try out something new? Come and ask me. Come and show me. I'll come in announced. We encourage peer observations as well. So we encourage teachers from the Arabic department to observe science teachers, to observe each other. There's a culture where people can just knock on the door, walk into a classroom and sit there, and it's okay. And when people ask me, could I come in and observe your B block tomorrow? I say, please don't ask. Just come in. And if I'm giving a quiz and you find it's boring because it's just a quiz, just leave and come back when I'm doing something. You just need to encourage a culture of visiting, of observing, of sharing ideas, where people don't shut the door and do their own thing. We use it for professional development. Does it affect their promotion in the sense that will we give a teacher who's extremely talented more work to do? Yes. Yes, we will. But that teacher will become more like a mentor. Yes. Will it affect their pockets, their money, their salary? No. No, we don't. We have divorced it from salary entirely. Because based on our talks with administrators in other schools, they said the one thing we regret, and many administrators from schools told us this, was making it relate to salary. Because then it becomes less genuine, and it's more of a competition, and there is resentment, and people will say, you know what, you have favorites. I don't have favorites. It's not about favorites, it's about I want to help a teacher grow. The number one thing before you start this process, you have to build trust with your teachers. They have to trust you. They have to respect you. You have to have the credibility to know you have to be a teacher yourself. Being a teacher and in the classroom is the number one key. They can't say, you can never hear, you don't know what it's like. I'm in front of those kids and I have to perform. I have to be an entertainer and I have to give them knowledge and I can never show that I'm having a bad day. It's not easy. And we ask our faculty to be relentlessly cheerful. Relentlessly cheerful. Yes. تقدر أني بحكي عربي. تفضل.
يعطيك العافية.
الله يعافيك.
بس بجوز بهذه الحالة يكون التقييم قيمته ملوش قيمة. يعني إذا ما ارتبطش بمرات التقييم إذا ما ارتبط في شيء مفيد أو عائد عليه ممكن ما يسهل فيه. صح؟
Okay, so the question is, for those of you who don't know Arabic, is that how could this be beneficial if there is no money involved when the person is not being rewarded with money? إذا ما في مصاري في الموضوع كيف
كمكافأة.
كمكافأة. في مكافأة. There is a reward. Now the reward is not monetary. المكافأة مش مصاري. هي مش عبارة عن مصاري. المكافأة هي recognition. أولاً هي هلا بجوز عم تحكي هلا هذا ideal. This is a very ideal situation. مزبوط؟ عم تحكي عم بتقول هذا إشي كتير مثالي. إذا ما في إشي رح يجي علي مردود أنا ليش أنا أعمله؟ مزبوط؟ هذا اللي عم تسأله.
الفكرة بشكل عام.
Okay, this is how people think in general. Okay, sorry. So what he's saying is, I'm sorry, I forgot that there's a translator here. So what he's saying is, if there isn't money coming to my pocket or something materialistic, what is the incentive going to be on the part of a teacher to want to improve? Now, what we are hoping, what we have fostered an environment at our school where becoming better as a teacher is a reward in itself. What we have done to our teachers who have done very well, they have become mentors, they have become teacher leaders, they have been promoted, to answer your question, in the sense that they are curriculum coordinators, which means the 10th grade English team has a leader, or the 9th grade history team has a leader, and that is a part of their growth. We consult them on issues. They're growing in their career. Is there money? No. Do we invest in them in PD? So in the summer, when a teacher comes and says, you know what, I feel like I've become a really good teacher leader. And we tell them, you know what, we're going to give you $3,000 this summer to go and take a course on how you can be an even better teacher leader. So in that sense, they are getting something, right? They're asking for something to make them better at what they're doing, and we support that. We give them funds in the summer. And if there's something happening in the winter, we let them do that as well. We let them come here, right? Yes.
It's okay. I know what you're saying. It's amazing, but you would need to have teachers who are genuinely devoted, and they want to grow. And it's their mission to grow, but this doesn't happen all the time. It's usually the monetary thing is what they're looking for.
Okay, let me tell you. Okay, are you saying there are only 10% of teachers who genuinely want to grow? Is that what you're saying? Okay, all right. Now, I would have to disagree. I'm sorry, just because I think I'll give you the mic in just 1 second. I would have to disagree just because if you are genuinely working with your teachers, and if at the hiring level you have hired for attitude, when we go out to the job fairs, we hire not always for knowledge. We get PhD people who are absolutely amazing on paper. On paper, wow, little Einsteins. However, when we sit and we talk with them, if they don't have that growth mindset that we're looking for, and we can't sit in a room with them for more than 5 to 10 minutes or half an hour max, we don't hire them. They may be great on paper, but let me tell you what, John and I look at each other and say, is this somebody I can live with? Because I see teachers a lot more than I see my 2 sons. I have a 16-year-old and 11-year-old, and they don't get the best of me. My teachers, get most of my time. So I better be hiring well. So I need to tell you that. Hire well. Hire for attitude. Knowledge can be taught. Information can be taught. I can teach a teacher to deliver content, but if they don't have the right attitude, they don't have the love and the passion that the students were talking about, I don't need them. I'm sorry, it's very ideal. And I have to stick to that ideal. Okay.
يعطيك العافية.
الله يعافيك.
يعني أنا إحنا في عندنا موضوع المعلم، هل هو صاحب مهنة أو صاحب رسالة؟ شيء مهم إن احنا نفرق. لا بد من موضوع التقييم، لأن احنا عندنا ألوف مؤلفة من المعلمين، والتقييم مهم لمجتمعنا ولمعلمينا، وعندنا أعداد كبيرة احنا في الشرق الأوسط، سواء خلينا نحكي عن الأردن أو فلسطين، في عندنا تقييم، بس التقييم بيتم من شغلتين، في عندنا المشرف وعندنا المدير. ومدير المدرسة هو اللي بيكون متواجد مع المعلم عبر 190 يوم، والمشرف بيجي يوم زي ما تفضلتي قبل شوي، بيجي يوم في السنة وبعيارة أجا بقول خلص هيهم أجوا ويعني مش راح يجوا بعدين، فممكن الأمور تقول إلى إنه يعني يتراجع شوي، فبالتالي المدير بيكون متواجد. فهل تقييم المشرف يكون أكثر أو تقييم المدير يكون أكثر؟ هذه فيها جدل. وموضوع اللي تفضلت فيه عن موضوع الراتب مربوط بالتقييم، في أفكار حتى الناس المميزة لو أعطيناها كل 3 سنوات تقدير ممتاز، أعطيناها درجة قدمناه على اللائحة، فبتصير بيكون عندنا تحفيز وتميز لموضوع التقييم. فهذا الحكي لازم يتم دراسته عبر دول الشرق الأوسط، إن مش اللي بأخذ تقييم جيد يكون إلى مثلا كل 5 سنوات درجة، اللي بأخذ تقييم جيد جدا كل 4 سنوات درجة، واللي بأخذ تقييم ممتاز كل 3 سنوات ممتاز يأخذ درجة. فبالتالي هذا بيكون حافز ان الكل يكون صاحب رسالة ونصل لعملية تعليمية مميزة في مدارسنا. شكرا.
Okay, thank you. So he started off by talking about teaching being like a profession or a job or a calling or a passion. And I think teaching is definitely a calling. If it's not your calling, if it's not your passion, if you don't love it every single day more than the day before, then there's something wrong. That does not mean we don't have our down days. We definitely do. We walk into a class one day and we say, I don't know what just happened. And you feel really bad about it. That's true. You were talking about the supervisor and maybe the head or the principal. Okay, let me tell you what we do at our school. So we have an HOD, a head of departments, and we have actually told the HOD, we have not, I would not say we've removed their authority, but what we have done is to make them more in the position of a coach. So the HOD does not appraise a teacher, does not evaluate a teacher. An HOD coaches a teacher. An HOD supports a teacher. An HOD gives guidance to the teacher. The people who actually appraise the teacher are not people who only go once into the class. We go into the classes 7 times a year, and the HOD goes into the classes 6 times a year. So it's not like that one-time thing. We need to have supervisors or those people who you're talking about at the high level going in more. And yes, we are speaking of an ideal situation. I understand that that's not how it works in every school, but that's how it works at our school. Yes, John.
One piece of insight that might help. Thank you. I taught it in a school that wanted to have a corporate model, and it looked so good, and most of us got so thrilled because if you got the high ranking, the raise was huge. And of course, I think everyone thought, I'm going to get that huge raise. So then it turned out to be about 1/5. Well, the whole thing was a disaster because the faculty turned on each other. And instead of raising anything about the school, it made some quit, it made them angry, and the money seemed worthless. And they scrapped it after a year. And so it's really very interesting to have been in a place where they thought that that would work because it works in a corporate world. This is not a corporate world, it's adolescence. And what we have seen is when we talk to heads of school who said, it's the biggest thing I wish I could undo. Now what we know is if at some point we decide to add it, we could add that. And that would be fine probably, but you can't undo as easily because you've created the environment where it's a resentment thing and it's that we have a favorite list and all of those problems. You have to take a risk that you can attract adults and keep adults who will keep all of these ideals of what school can and should be. And we've seen it for a year, and we worked on it for 3 years, which was such a long time.
I'll definitely open this up to questions again. I'll just go and I'll come back to you. Yes, would you like to ask a question right now?
طيب هلا ممكن لو بدي أقدر معلم مش إلا ماديا معنويا مثلا بكتاب شكر بشيء معنوي راح يخلق جو الكراهية هذا كمان مرة لأنه أنا بفكر فعلا الفصل هذا أعمل هيك فممكن يعمل جو كراهية بينهم حتى بشغلة معنوية ككتاب شكر على مجهوده اللي عمله بالهدف اللي حققه.
So the question is, if I write a letter of thank you to teachers, would that create an atmosphere of resentment amongst teachers? I don't think so. If you're going to write a thank you letter to teachers, a thank you letter to a teacher who's doing really, really well, it's not just about that letter. Let me tell you, after every single feedback session, we don't write thank you letters to teachers. But when I'm thinking of a thank you letter, I am not thinking of a one-time letter. I'm not. Not something that they can frame. It's after every single feedback, when I'm sitting with a teacher, and I have some very modest teachers who are doing a really, really good job, who are not sure of, like, am I doing well? And when I tell them, you know what, you are doing 1, 2, 3 very, very well. I'm really proud of you. You would not believe how far that goes. It's nothing written down in that moment, but maybe in my feedback, they have the evaluations, and they have the summative letter at the end of the year. However, let me tell you something that I did not tell you, and I'm going to share that with you right now. Now, if a teacher is not doing very well, and I didn't touch on that part yet, right? If a teacher is not doing well, and we do have those teachers, and we don't live in utopia at King's Academy, okay? It's not like this promised land or something. It's not. What it is it's a place where we have teachers, and some of them struggle, and at the end of the year, we do tell them, after we've spoken to them once, and twice, and 3 times, and 10 times, and they're still struggling, they will get a letter. And I will not call it a letter of reprimand, no. It's a letter telling them, you know what, after all this time, you are still struggling in these areas, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we expect in the following year an action plan. We need to see what you're going to do to fix 1, 2, 3, 4. And we will continue to support you in fixing those areas. And when we see that, if we see the support is not enough, we will intensify the support. However, if we have done everything we can do, we have invested time, we have spoken to them, we have sent them on PD, we have worked with them, and the mindset is not something that we could change, there are some difficult decisions that need to be made. And sometimes it's not a best fit. And sometimes you do have to ask teachers to leave your institution because it's not a good fit for them, for you, or for the kids. Because ultimately, you want your kids to have the best teachers. It's their right, whether they're paying money or not. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to move on for a bit. Oh, we're constantly doing PD. We have rarely asked 2 years, 2 years to 3 years. We will continue to work with a teacher. And it usually works, but there is that odd time where nothing is working. And you try, and out of 90 teachers that you have, for example, if you ask 1 or 2 to leave, that's not the worst thing in the world. It's fine. Now, the reason I have this arrow here is because there are bumps along the way. This is not all rosy. I have had people cry in my office. It does happen. No matter how supportive or empathetic I have been, we have our ups and we have our downs. And yes, it can be a difficult and a painful process. Appraisal is not always rosy. It's not. It's not. It's sometimes very difficult. However, we have found that along the way, our downs and our ups they all lead towards upward development of our teachers and our students, definitely. It's very rewarding in the end. So despite a system's apparent rationality, the one thing teachers can expect is uncertainty. We walk to a class, we don't always know what's going to happen. It's an emotional reality. We give a lot of ourselves. It's frustratingly complex. It's a mix of deliberate intent and serendipity, purpose, surprise, unpredictability, ambiguity, frustration, just as it has fulfillment, success, and satisfaction. We're in it because it fills us with all these emotions, or else we wouldn't be teachers. We would be doing something else, and I don't want to name anything else so that people don't get upset. But we are teachers for a reason, and we guide teachers, and we want them to be the best they can be, again, for a reason. So this is what it looks like in the end. We'd like it to look like this. Of course, this is our ideal place. This is where planning backwards for teachers. This is where we hope they go. Ideally, does everybody get here? No. Okay? They don't. Not everybody gets here. But we promise that if teachers do what we ask them to do and take the risk, then they will get here, because the only impossible journey is the one you never begin. If you don't try it and take a risk on your teachers, then you know what? But ultimately, you're going to get through that forest. You will. You'll get through the forest, and it'll clear up. I hope that helped you a little bit. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
يعطيك العافية. أنت بتتحدث الآن عن المدرسة المثالية اللي بالكينغز أكاديمي. لما بدك تيجي على الواقع عندنا في المدارس الحكومية، كل اللي حكيتي ما بقدرش ننطبق عندنا على الواقع، أرض الواقع. الموظفين حتى المعلمين جدا جدا، يعني حتى المعلمين إذا بدك تحاولي تدفعيهم لتنمية أنفسهم ذاتيا ما بدهم. في مقاومين للتغيير بشكل مش طبيعي. والضحية مين في الآخر؟ الطالب. فيعني احنا قاعدين هنا زي مننظر تنظير، لأنكم بتحكوا عن فئة معينة، بس باقي المجتمع كله، الفئة الأكبر حقوقها مهضومة جدا. حتى لو حاولنا نعدل، احنا كمدراء، أنا مديرة مدرسة، لو حاولت أعدل ما في معي صلاحيات. ممكن أعطي تنبيه، ممكن أعطي انذار، وزي ما حكيت بترجع للعاطفة. بدك تقطعي رزقه، بدك تخليهم يروح من الوظيفة بعد 10-15 سنة. اللي بيقاوم التغيير لفترة طويلة، شو الفائدة منه؟ شو الفائدة منه؟ أبدا. يعني معاناة مش طبيعية معنا مع المعلمين والضحية الطلاب. في صفوف مكتظة حوالي 50 طالب بالغرفة الصفية.
أنا أتوقع حقيقة أن زي ما تفضلت الدكتورة، إحنا نحاول الوصول إلى المثالية، لكن في نفس الوقت يجب أن نصل إلى المثالية. وجود هذا التقييم الروبريك هذا راح يضع يعني في شفافية بيننا وبين المعلمين، وراح يضع المعلمين هو من يقيمون أنفسهم. لذلك في نهاية العام يجب أن نزرع للمعلمين قضية الاحتفال بالنجاح. قد تكون هناك عوائق مادية، عوائق، لكن قد نصادف بعض المعلمين في الميدان من ينظر الأمر كنظرة وظيفية، لكن يجب أن نزرع قضية الاحتفال بالنجاح، وهذه قد لا تكون من سنة واحدة، من سنة، سنتين إلى 3، إلى أن نصل إلى المثالية التي يعني كنا يعني بدينا فيها في السنوات الأولى. شكرا.
So for those of you who are interested in these two comments, the lady here is saying that sometimes it's a little bit too ideal, and in some government schools there are classes that have 51 kids in them, not only 50, up to 51 kids, and she was saying that it's sometimes hard to ask teachers to improve. It sounds too ideal. And then the gentleman here is saying, well, if we celebrate this is probably a solution to what you just said. If we celebrate small successes, no matter how small they are, that may be a way to incentivize teachers. Okay, well, إذا ما حصلتوش على ورقة, if you did not get a handout, a paper, they're right there. We made extra copies if you'd like to have some. I understand definitely there are frustrations. There are frustrations in the profession, and not every place can invest in their teachers or follow a program like this. أكيد, it's difficult to be able to do that. However, that should never stop us from striving towards the best. We always have to try. We can never say, these teachers will not change no matter what I do, and then just give up on them. We don't do that with our kids, right? Do I ever look at my son and say, you know what, oh my God, he's driving me crazy. جنني هذا الولد. ما خلص فيش فايدة منه لو شو ما عمله. لا. Same thing with we don't give up on our kids, we don't give up on our teachers. نفس النظرية. صح هي مثالية شوي. But we can't give up. ما